was that?
I'm hoping it's not a cougar or a wolf.
That's growling sound.
It is growling, which isn't good news.
Somewhere between Arlington and Henderson, Minnesota, is a place called Vampire Valley. A place where an urban legend about a woman who drowned her children and then hung herself, known as Crazy Annie, has captivated locals for decades. The question is any of this based on fact? Or is it just a wild tale passed down from generation to generation?
We're here on the outskirts of Henderson in the Vampire Valley. What a fabulous macabre name. Just behind me is where Crazy Annie was supposed to have hung herself at the end of the 1910s. So we're going to run some equipment and find out if these urban legends are actually true. Shakespeare said in Henry V that even though we're in spring, the winter creeps in and gives him weeping of sorrow. And I can understand what he's saying when in the spring here in Minnesota we're surrounded still by coldness and snow. Legend dictates that there was a woman called Annie, and her husband died in the First World War in 1917 as she slowly went mad. She took her children to this very creek and allegedly drowned them here, just where we're standing underneath this old bridge. And then she hanged herself from one of the trees off to my left. So we're here today with full equipment, and we're going to find out if this is truth or whether it's fiction and whether Annie actually comes through. My name's Adrian, I'm a paranormal investigator. There's been a lot of legends, a lot of mythology about this bridge and what happened here. I just want to get to the facts. I want to know what took place. So I'm going to ask the spirits in and around this location if you can start telling me details historically of all the things that happened here. If you're here, Annie, can you just shout your name out just so I know who you are? My name's Adrian. I'm not here to take you away, I'm not here to cause you any problems. I just want to find out a little bit about your life. I've done a lot of historical research on you and I can't seem to find anything, so anything you can give me to research I'd be very grateful for. Are you here, Annie? Someone said look at that. I suspect not too many people come to the underside of this bridge, especially in the winter. I found an article from May 1905 that said that a woman in Texas had drowned her 3 children in a creek and then drowned herself, and that was on the front page of the newspaper that was in Henderson. So there would have been an awareness of this in that town at that time, but it wasn't from that place. Annie, are you here? Can you shout my name out? Annie, if you're here, can you shout Annie out? Male voice said no. Are you Annabelle or are you Annie? What would you prefer to be called? Is there any spirits connected to this bridge? Is there people that used to live here? Is there people that were living on the banks of this creek? Any spirits at all that want to come through and say hello? And then I can ask you historical questions. So can you shout your name out if you lived in this area? In June 1883, a gentleman named Michael Carroll had actually drowned in the creek as well, and we had found him, and I wondered if he was coming through and giving me a sense of directions and information with it. So is your family with you? Are you with your wife, yes or no?
As always on these investigations, many of the EVPs aren't heard until after a full evidence review. In this case, there are many.
Female voice said sure. Is there a family here? Yes or no? Female voice said go ahead, male voice then said hi. Hi, can you see us at the moment, yes or no? Are you aware of the legend of Crazy Annie attached to this bridge, yes or no? Yes. Do you think, in your opinion, the Crazy Annie story is true, yes or no? Can you tell me if you believe the Crazy Annie story to be true, yes or no? Getting a lot of responses there, but again we're going to have to go back and do an evidence review to see what was said. I may have actually missed it and then you'll see it underneath in subtitles, but obviously I'm going to persist and see what evidence we can get. Can you tell me, do you think the Crazy Annie legend is true, yes or no? Are you aware of the legend of Crazy Annie? Somebody said what, so I'll repeat the question. Are you aware of the legend attached to this bridge of Crazy Annie, yes or no? Very faint no underneath there. I'll ask again for clarification, but what I'm getting from the spirits that lived in this area, or perhaps having cabins along the creek here, is that they aren't aware of the legend. So I'm going to ask again, just to clarify that. Are you aware of the legend of Crazy Annie, yes or no? No. I'm going to persist with the investigation, but as a psychic I'm feeling as if there isn't anything here that I could be latching onto psychically. A lot of the equipment, the SLS camera hasn't picked up any figures at all. We don't have any spikes in energy on the K2 meter. The eye ovulus really isn't giving me a great deal, and what I'm getting through on the ghost box at the moment seems to be people that lived along the creek here and are just coming through to say hello because I asked for them to make their presence known. So I'm going to persist with the investigation. We may walk around and we may get some results, but at the moment I'm feeling as if this urban legend isn't true.
After extensive research, Adrian found that only 4 men from Henderson were killed in the First World War. None of them were married, furthering the suspicion that a lot of the Crazy Annie story is simply made up. Adrian moves farther up the river, closer to where Annie supposedly drowned her children and then hung herself.
I've moved to a slightly different location now, and I'm just going to see if we get some different information come through. I've got some ways in which I can lead the spirits to talk to me, so we'll just see if those things work. Are there any spirits here that can just talk to me that lived in this location? Can you say hello to me? Okay, someone said here. Can you shout your name out so I know who's here? Do you prefer David or Dave? David. David, I'm really pleased you came through and I'm happy for you to be here. We're at this bridge at the moment because we believe a lady called Annie hung herself from this bridge back at the beginning of the last century. Do you know that to be true? Is that a correct statement? Someone said no. So I'm just going to try and get more information from him. Was there a lady that hung herself in this local area? Are we in the wrong place, yes or no? David, now I've got you here so strongly, I've got a series of questions I want to ask you from the spirit world that you can help me with my research. Was there a lady called Annie who hanged herself, yes or no? No. Someone said clear, followed by the word no. So the spirits are telling us at the moment that there wasn't a woman named Annie that hanged herself. So what I'm going to now ask, if there was a woman who hanged herself, and if we're in the right place. Was there a lady that hanged herself? We just got her name wrong. Was there a hanging, yes or no? I thought that said yes, and he said Dave again after that. So we may be in the wrong place and we may have the wrong woman, but he seems to think a hanging did take place. What was the name of the woman who hanged herself? Can you tell me? Someone said this is the name you want. What's the name of the lady that hanged herself? Can you tell me? Do you know the name of the woman who hanged herself? Someone said here in a female voice when I asked, do you know the name of the woman who hanged herself? So my next question would be, are we in the right location? Was this the bridge and the location where that lady hanged herself, yes or no? Someone said false. So are we in the wrong place?
There are a lot of responses coming through. Some we can't make out definitively, even after isolating the audio.
Moving on. Is there a place nearby where that lady hanged herself? Yes. So what we're getting is that there was a lady that hanged herself. We haven't got the right name, I don't think, and it wasn't in this location, but it was close to this location. So I'm just going to try and clarify all those things. And of course, over history, a lot of these stories change, a lot of the places get lost in the midst of time. So we're getting some interesting information here from the spirits that may have been around when that actually happened. Are we close to where that took place? Is it upriver? Couple of maybes in a row. Are we at the wrong bridge? I then discovered in September 1907 a lady named Anna was attacked with a hammer because a gentleman wanted to marry her and she said no. He then committed suicide by hanging. So I wondered if this informed in Henderson the story of Crazy Annie. There's a lot going on here because we're under a bridge, but there's definitely some knocking sounds starting to be produced, and I do feel the energy starting to raise. So we're in a different place right now to when we started this investigation. Energy is rising. I am getting contact, and it's going to be interesting to see what our equipment measures.
What the hell is that?
I'm hoping it's not a cougar or a wolf.
That's growling sound.
It is growling, which isn't good news. What you may have picked up on the camera there is there's actually some growling coming from the undergrowth. Now, I'm very much aware, having seen footprints in the snow and scat, that there are large cats around. There's mountain lions and cougars. And also, we're in a part of the world where a coyote or a wolf wouldn't be unusual. So just keeping our wits about us here and looking around, and I'm now hearing, and it made me jump, some twigs cracking as well. So if we get eaten on this investigation, then obviously that's going to be great for our viewing figures, but we'll keep an eye on that. And of course, all I have to outdo is run Steve.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what that noise was. That's an animal.
There's a cracking over there as well. Something's moving around.
Yeah, there's an animal up there somewhere. I just don't know what that sound
My
is.
worst fear is that in the middle of March and amongst all this snow, that's not eaten for a long time, and we look quite plump and tender sat down here. In June 1903, I discovered that hundreds of animals all along the banks of that river and that creek had actually drowned in a flooding. So I wondered if some of the animal noises we were beginning to hear were actually the spirits of the distressed animals that were drowning back in the day. We're just moving a little bit further down the creek because the legend says that Annie actually hanged herself from a tree here. So we've moved ourselves away from the bridge where allegedly she drowned her children. And we're just going to find out a little bit more information to see if this is true or not. David, you were talking to me earlier and you said that this wasn't the bridge. And of course this is a much more modern bridge than would have been available back in the day. You said it may be further up the creek. So if we walked further up here, would we get to the bridge?
Every process.
David, would that bridge be the one that's no longer there and further up the creek? Would that be correct? There was a yes in amongst all of that. David, I need nice clear responses from you. If we walked further up the creek here to where the bridge is down further along, is that the bridge you were discussing, yes or no?
Hey.
Hey. Is that correct, the bridge further along?
Hey.
Was it one of the trees here where she would have hanged herself, yes or no? What's the name of the lady that hanged herself further along the creek here? Could you shout your name out? Katie. Do you prefer Catherine, Kathy, Katie, Kate? What would you prefer? Do you prefer Katie? Katie, did your husband die in the First World War, yes or no? Did you hang yourself at this location further behind me here, yes or no? There. Katie, did you hang yourself? Spirits responded all the way through this investigations, and on many times they told me that they had no awareness of the story of Crazy Annie. What happens with a lot of these urban legends as a historian is there's some grain of truth normally in there, and then all the facts get twisted and evolve through a period of time. So based on my research, and we'll have to go back and listen to the evidence of course, but I get the impression this wasn't the bridge, and the bridge certainly looks a lot younger than perhaps we were thinking of back in 1917. It's a more modern construction, but based on what they've said, I think we've got the name wrong. I don't think it's Annie. I also think we're in the wrong location, and we're going to have a wander up the creek to see if we can find if there was an old bridge up there. So we're starting to piece together some evidence here, and it's coming together bit by bit. During the course of the investigation, the name David came up, of course, and I asked if he preferred Dave or David, and he said David. Have a look now at the eye ovulus. We've just come back to look at the evidence, and here we have David written clearly on the eye ovulus, and the chances of that happening are very, very thin. This now has to be considered to be paranormal evidence rather than coincidence. I've never seen before in all my investigations the eye ovulus actually backing up the ghost box in real time and saying the word David. It was very impressive evidence. Can't believe that says David. That's insane. Absolutely insane. It's very interesting that whenever I go on paranormal investigations, the spirits are very vampiric of all the energy I have with me in all my batteries, which is very interesting when you consider we're in Vampire Valley. We've started the second vigil where the old bridge used to be, and you can see some earthworks and some evidence of where that old bridge used to be. We're now standing here 100 yards from the bridge we started at, based on the spirits telling us we were in the wrong place, and I now believe this is the bridge where those incidents would have happened. So I just want to clarify that and get that information come through on the ghost box. It was an absolute joy to find the old bridge and to find the old earthworks, and the spirits had directed us to this location and we had no knowledge of this. I also want to get Katie or David come through just to clarify that this is the old broken down bridge where those incidents may have taken place. So can you shout your name out for me please, if I've spoken to you previously? Someone shouted out you need to listen. So I'm here, I'm listening, I'm ready to get the information that you're providing. I spoke to Katie and David on the underside of the bridge further up the creek here. Is this the bridge where those incidents took place, yes or no? The spirits I've spoken to previously, is this the bridge, the broken down bridge where those incidents took place, yes or no? I believe that David, Katie, Jess, Nate, Matt had all given us directions, and they came through and were actually helping me on the investigation. We were being helped by those that had passed and those that were on the other side. We may not have the right name, but I'm now looking to see whether a lady did hang herself in this location. So the sole information I'm dealing with right now is, did a lady back in the day hang herself from this location, yes or no? Someone said March, and we're currently in March, so I wonder if we're here at roughly the same time that happened in terms of a calendar year. Can you tell me, did the lady hang herself from this location, yes or no? For the sake of historical documentation, I just want you to clarify what you said. I believe you said yes, of course, and sure when I said, is this the location? Can you just clarify that for me, and then we'll leave you in peace? Yes. Was the lady that allegedly hanged herself from this bridge here that no longer exists, is that correct? Yes. I think we have enough evidence now with everything we've been doing today that several spirits that lived in this location back at the turn of the last century have verified that a lady did hang herself. I don't believe it's Annie, and we were in the wrong place. It was a bridge 100 yards further up the creek that's no longer here, but you can still see the earthworks. So we're going to do some historical research. We're going to try and piece this all together, and we're just adding a bit more knowledge to the canon of Minnesotan history.
While the story of Crazy Annie is likely just a myth, it does appear to have roots in actual events. Stories morphed together over time that have evolved into this urban legend that still circulates today. Thanks for watching.